Hello and welcome, or welcome back. You've clicked on this video because you're curious. What is this 69-year-old woman going to tell me about her rules for life? Well, it's just a bit of fun, and it was inspired by a recent article in the Times of London. Now, my rules for life are mostly to be taken with a pinch of salt. They're light-hearted, although one or two are a bit more serious. And they are rules that I try to live by. So without further ado, let's crack on. So my first rule for life is don't eat in a hotel restaurant. I mean, I tell myself this all the time, and I have made some boo-boos. I have booked restaurants without checking that they're part of a hotel. Now, why do I say that? Well, honestly, I find them so soulless. There's never much of a buzz. It's all rather quiet. The food can be quite indifferent. I booked a restaurant in a hotel, and honestly, it was just so dull. And the food wasn't that great either. So unless you have to eat in a hotel restaurant, for example, if you're staying in the hotel and you haven't got time to go anywhere else, or you haven't had time to check out anywhere else, then of course you've got to do that. And actually, one thing I would say is hotel bars are really quite nice to have drinks in, but I definitely wouldn't be eating in a hotel restaurant unless I really had to. Now, my second rule for life is do not criticize your daughter's partner, because if you do, they will never forget it. I suggest always taking your cue from them, unless of course the relationship's abusive or their views are totally at odds with your values and are offensive. Just remember that this person could be their life partner. So see if there's a way that you can find to accommodate them. I know it's hard. I've been through this myself. I completely understand. And my mother was a great example of this. She was not happy with my choice of first husband. She really wasn't, although she did come to love him eventually. But she was really good. She made absolutely no attempt to criticize him, even though there was a lot of tension between her and him for quite a few years at the beginning of our relationship. So if you can find a way to accommodate it and the relationship isn't causing your daughter harm, then probably best not to. Rule for life number 3. Don't save anything for best. And this is a lesson learnt from Nora Ephron. And I think it was from the book I Feel Bad About My Neck. She was such a great writer and died far too young. Now, why do I say that? Well, I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you're over 50, over 60, over 70 or beyond. What is the point of waiting for best? There may never be a best. Let's get on with it. Let's use the expensive perfume. Let's wear the fancy outfits. Why not? Let's wear the jewellery. That's what it's there for. It's there to be enjoyed. The objects that you have are there to be used and enjoyed and loved. So let's go out there with our best foot forward and our best garbs on and smelling heavenly and wearing the expensive makeup and really enjoying and leaning into it, for want of a better expression. Rule for life number 4. Now, this is a terrible cliche. It's eat the rainbow. Now, I've really made a concerted effort to do this in the last year or so after I read Tim Spector's book, Food for Life. It made a big impact on me, together with doing the Zoe blood test and other tests as well, which let me know actually if you're interested in me doing a video about my Zoe experience. Let me know in the comments below. But it wasn't just doing the Zoe tests, it was also reading the book, because my gut health really wasn't very good at all. I was struggling with it a bit, and after reading the book I made some really big changes. I stopped eating much red meat, although I wasn't eating a lot of it and I was eating good quality, but I cut it down to once a week or even once every 2 weeks, and even other meat. I only eat chicken maybe once a week. And it really has made a difference to my gut to bring in different coloured vegetables and fruits, many more fruits than I used to eat actually. I'm making a real effort to do that. And there are a couple of big changes I've made. I've introduced kimchi, which I have to say I don't love, but I'm making myself eat it, and it's kimchi without being preserved in vinegar. That's really important, according to Tim Spector. So I eat kimchi every day, and I also try and eat as much beetroot as I can, even though I'm not that fond of it. I think beetroot, again, if it's not in vinegar, if you actually roast it in the oven, so you cook it yourself and then slice it up, it's actually quite nice. So I think living by that rule of eating the rainbow is a really good one for our longevity. Rule number 5, do not stress if your partner hangs the mug in the wrong direction. Now, you might think, what are you on about, Des? Hanging mugs in the wrong direction? What is the wrong direction? Well, a long time ago, when I was married to husband number 2, I criticised him for hanging the mugs in a glass-fronted cupboard because you could see through it, obviously, because it was glass-fronted. I wanted all the mugs to hang in a particular way, and he used to not bother about that and just hang them any old way, the opposite way, for example. And I had a bit of a go at him. I did realise the error of my ways quite soon afterwards, but I suppose what I'm trying to say by that is, if your husband doesn't load the dishwasher the way you would, or if he puts the bin bag in slightly wrong, or if he forgets to recycle something that can be recycled and you spot it, just take it out the bin, rinse it and put it in the recycling bin. It's not that difficult. He's not going to change his ways, particularly if he's our age. It's going to be very difficult to change him. I think Cher once said that her mother used to say, if it won't matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter. So maybe that's the rule we should live by. So if he wants to hang the mugs one way and you want them the other, so what? You can always creep back afterwards and turn it the other way, can't you? Rule for life number 6. Create your own centenarian Olympics. Now this rule I've borrowed from Dr. Peter Atelier, who is a longevity expert. And he said that when he's 100, he would like to be able to do certain things, like pick his grandkids or maybe great-grandkids off the floor, lift a certain weight, and various other physical things and mental things as well. And I think that's a really good rule to consider, because I want to be as fit and healthy as I possibly can be when I'm 100. Now, I'm in the middle of listening to Joan Collins's autobiography, the latest one. It's called Behind the Shoulder Pads. And I think I'm right in saying she's 92 or 93. And I think you really would not know that by listening to her and actually watching her in a recent interview that she did with Louis Theroux, because she doesn't act like an old woman. She acts like a sharp, interested woman who grabs life by the what's-it and hasn't really slowed down all that much. She still swims, she still goes out to dinner and to parties, she's still acting, she's doing all that stuff, and now she's just written this book as well. So whatever you think about her, she really loves life and wants to give it a good go and wants to keep on giving it a good go. And I want to be like that too. I'm coming up to 70, I'm going to be 70 in September, and I want to be like her when I'm 92. And I want to be physical, and I want to be able to pick things up and look after myself. So I think if we can think about what things we'd like to do when we're 100, we can start thinking about how we're going to get there now. I think that's what Dr. Peter Atelier is really saying. So maybe think about it, maybe write down what you'd like to be doing when you're 100, whether you'd like to be able to do gardening or walk a mile or walk to the shops or whatever it is. Think about the things you'd like to do when you're 100 and see if you can create a little plan to get there. Rule for life number 7. If you are lucky enough to be a granny, don't be a regular granny unless you really want to commit. Now, if you are lucky enough to be a granny or a nana or an oma, you don't have to be a carer as well if you don't want to, because you've already done it with your kids. Now, I know childcare is expensive and women in particular tend to bear the brunt of it. But if you don't have to do it, don't. I was always very clear with my daughter that I didn't want to be a regular carer for my grandson. Now, you might think that's really mean. My daughter and her then husband were lucky enough to be able to afford childcare. So my grandson did go to a nursery when my daughter went back to work. But I never wanted to be that kind of granny. I wanted to be like my granny, who, yes, I went on holiday with her. I used to go and stay with her in the south of France. But she lived abroad, so she couldn't be regular granny anyway. And she had a life of her own. And I have a life of my own. And I'm still working. And I don't want to be a regular child carer. And I'm very lucky that I don't have to do that. And I do think there is something about saying to your children, I'm not going to be that regular granny, unless of course you really want to. Of course, if you want to do it, that's fantastic. But I didn't want to do that, and I'm really glad that I set my stall out early so that my daughter had the expectation that I wasn't going to be the regular granny. Rule number 8, do not wear a skirt suit and a fascinator to your child's wedding. Now, I know this is really controversial, but I think skirt suits and fascinators look so aging. I mean, you're not going to the office. Why do you want to wear a suit? Wear a dress. If you must wear a fascinator, fine, wear one. Although I prefer a hat, to be honest, if I'm going to wear anything on my head. Although you don't need to wear anything on your head. Maybe if it's a religious service and you have to cover your head, well, just cover your head for the service. You don't have to wear a fascinator, and you can hardly tell me a fascinator is actually covering your head. It's just wearing some sort of weird concoction on it. Did you see Princess Beatrice going into the church for Will's and Catherine's wedding? Dearie me, I don't know what that was. So I highly recommend looking for a dress or even a trouser suit. A trouser suit would be great, but not a skirt suit, and try and do away with a fascinator if you possibly can. Rule for life number 9. Do prioritise your mental health as well as your physical health. The two go hand in hand. And this is so important as we age. Let's face it, we know we're going to croak it eventually. So we must remember to be grateful that we're still here. We're still able to enjoy our surroundings, our garden if we're lucky enough to have one, the birds, the bees, yes, and that as well. The vagaries of our weather. These external things can help us to be grateful that we've come so far. And the news, it's been so awful for the last few years. Let's limit our exposure to it. Once or twice a day is enough, and certainly don't start the day with it. And to lift your mood, why not have a good laugh? There's nothing like having a good laugh. Try and find a funny film on Netflix or even on YouTube. I bought a few on YouTube actually, and My Favourite Year, which is one of my favourite films. I know not everybody finds it funny, but I think it's hilarious. I'll put the link down below for you. Or, as my husband absolutely adores watching in the morning because it's repeated here on Channel 4, Frasier. And of course, failing that, there's always Some Like It Hot. And that'll put you in the right frame of mind if anything does. Rule for life number 10. Do get outside every day, even if the weather is like it is at the moment here. Just make sure you're wearing the right clothing. Now, like I say, the weather is really awful here at the moment, but I'm making sure that I go out every day to get some fresh air, even if I have to tool up ridiculously with hats and gloves and heavy coats, just to get some fresh air and feel, not the sun, but even feeling the rain on my face is better than staying indoors all day. And it will really help to lift your mood. Rule for life number 11. Do read or listen to other people's opinions that you might not agree with. Now I know, and I'm guilty of this as well, we all read to confirm our biases and turn away when we disagree, because that's what's causing all this awful polarisation in the world at the moment. It's so important to consider the other person's point of view before dismissing it. Now you might say, Des, we watched your video about tattoos and piercings and you said they were awful. And I did say that, or I said I didn't like them. Maybe I said I hated them actually. But I have to say, reading the comments afterwards made me reconsider at least some of my feelings about tattoos and piercings. Because there were some women who said, I got a tattoo to remember someone who died. And that really touched me. And even piercings. I really don't like them, but okay, a little nose piercing, and I think I did address that in the video. I can live with them. I just don't like a lot of them, let's put it that way. I think too many, it's a bit like tattoos, maybe one or two, but not a lot, maybe the same with piercings. But it's so important that we don't just dismiss those opinions, that we read them, that we take them on board. Ultimately, of course, we can disagree with them, but we should accept that everybody has the right to free speech. And finally, rule for life number 12. Be your own best friend. Now that's a line I've borrowed from the much missed Amy Winehouse. Friends are vital, but there are times when you might have problems that you don't want to share, but you do need to think things through. So imagine you're telling your best friend about your problem or the issue you're grappling with, and then imagine what they'd say back to you. You've been that best friend yourself, so put yourself in their shoes, step back and consider. You'll feel so much better and you'll take a rational approach to the situation. So there you have it. Those are my 12 rules for life. What do you think? Do you agree with any of them? Do you think I'm talking complete BS? What do you think? I'd love to hear what your rules for life are, because I so enjoyed with my last opinion type video, engaging with the comments. They were so interesting, and like I say, I have opened my mind to some things that perhaps I'd closed. And if you've enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up and hit the notification bell. And if you'd like to hear more from me, I have a monthly newsletter. And in that, I don't just talk about fashion, beauty, lifestyle and opinions. I also share what I'm loving in movies, books, podcasts, other content creators, and all the other bits and bobs that make our lives worthwhile. And thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. And I hope you're all doing really well. And I'll look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye!